When it comes to reducing oxalate, because it's interplaying with so many other things in the body, it's really best to move it out slowly. So when it comes to what we know now versus what we knew at the time when I was reducing oxalate, we know that it's not a good idea to nosedive. And part of the reason for that is really that it's got a second kick at the can on the way out. If we can think of this a little bit like heavy metal toxicity, you don't necessarily notice it going in. But once you're really sick with it, you are sure as heck going to notice it on the way out.
Wow.
And so with certain processes, like even chelation for heavy metals, we know we have to go slowly because it's just as toxic on the way out as it was on the way in, but now you're more fragile. Same deal with oxalate. Right? It was toxic when it went in for storage in my body. But by the time I was trying to roll it out, I was 48 and wondered how long I was going to live. And so that's a whole different like health status for the organism, right? So what we really want to do, despite the fact that there is a proportion of people, again, outliers, who can nosedive their oxalate and they'll do fine. The more unwell you are, the more likely you should go slow in pulling things out. I did okay, actually, at 48, like just trying to pull everything out as fast as I could. And at that point, people didn't realize what the risk was. But I did have one really bad oxalate dumping experience. And at that point, my body had started to rev up some of the histamine stuff too. So the higher your stress level, the more likely that you're going to be more reactive, the more likely histamine issues are going to be there. And I actually ended up having to walk into ER to have somebody just monitor me because I was just not feeling confident.
Wow.
And so that's what you don't want. You don't want people so sick they have to go to the ER. You know, if we reduce it slowly, then it moves out of the body more slowly, and we're respecting the capacity of the organism to handle that at that time too. So by all means, if at this point in time you're doing something like spinach every day, but you've got lots of other oxalate in your diet as well, pull one out so you can feel like you've successfully done something, right? But don't pull them all out at once. Oh my gosh. And this is one of those things that doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but it's kind of one of the easiest ways to take your oxalate down. Try to get most of your diet to be low oxalate and then have 3 or 4 foods maybe that are really high and have them intermittently. So let's say what I usually use for people is things like sweet potato, because there's nutrients there that are more bioavailable than the kinds of things that are in spinach. And yet it's still got a fair amount of oxalate punch to it. So maybe you start out, you've taken out most of the oxalate. Maybe every day you're having at least 1 serving of sweet potato, but every other day you're having 2. You've still maybe come down from 500 or more and you're still doing good, but you're having some days where you spike up your oxalate. And then I usually focus on certain foods. So I've got a short list of maybe 10 foods, and then at different rankings, depending how high the oxalate diet you've been on. And I add those into people's diets and I give them a schedule. So you're going to You're going to make this high oxalate smoothie and you're going to have sweet potato on this day. And then the next day you're going to have green beans, and that's a lot less. And then you're going to have the high oxalate smoothie and the sweet potato again. And I'll actually give them a schedule of things to add in.
Wow.
And then we'll slowly fade those out. So we may have dropped them down to 300 milligrams of oxalate already, but then we try to slow up as we're coming into that end game of getting to a fully low oxalate diet.